gosh, these introductions, you guys are amazing. I feel like I learned things about myself. And thank you, both of you, for putting on this beautiful series and for this garden, for sharing it with us. Okay, so here's my Game of Thrones reference. I was in Haiti in an air-conditioned UN tent in the Artibonite, the driest, most desert-like region of Haiti. And it was so surreal because I was there with this Haitian agronome who lived just meagerly with whatever he could and spent his days hiking around trying to preach the gospel of trees, reforestation, erosion control farming. And so we were eating watermelon in this tent, and this huge screen is playing advertisements for this new mini-series that's about to start. And he was looking at our plates as they were emptying, and he was like, "Can I take your watermelon seeds? Because we can plant those. We can put those in the gardens. We don't have to throw this away. We can use this." And it was just one of those moments where it happens so often in a place like Haiti, where you see this just, the ground opening, this crack of how profound the injustice is about how resources are distributed. So I had the hardest time picking what to read from this book, because in so many ways it's the story of one exile and return after another after another. When we moved back to the US from Haiti when I was 7, after the first stint as missionaries, it was my first realization that the image that most people have about Haiti was nothing like what I had experienced. I had loved living in Haiti that first year. I mean, lizards on the ceilings, bathtub warm beach water, and you could cram to the back of this bus, and there's these bugle call bus horns, and jostling everyone together. It was just the happiest place to live for that, year of being a 6-year-old. And then suddenly we're standing up in these slideshows giving this song and dance to raise money for Haiti, and realizing we're dumbing this place down in a way that's unrecognizable, and the image that people have in their heads is nothing like what the place is actually like. So it's just I don't even know where I belong anymore. And then at 15, when we went back to Haiti for the last time, this time I was the resentful missionary's daughter that was writing in my journal, "There goes my life." And so that felt like exile. I mean, I'd been trying so hard to masquerade as a normal American teenager, and it wasn't going very well. I mean, I'm a missionary kid. You just can't fit in. And so, but then at the end of that 1.5-year stretch, when we'd just taken off from Port-au-Prince, and I'm in the air writing in my journal and looking down over Florida, these grid pattern suburbs, and I just had this sinking feeling I miss Haiti. I miss that chaos and splendor and defiance and beauty, and I don't know now where I fit. I don't feel like I fit in this country anymore. Where is home? Or there was an interview that I did with a missionary that had spent his entire life in Haiti, and then in his late 40s, during political uprisings, left with one suitcase. And that was it. His life there was over. He still dreams in Creole. And he is adamant in insisting that foreigners, the Blancs, Americans, we have no business there. Haitian people should be in charge of Haiti. And he also said, "I feel like I'm in exile every day of my life." So I kind of did a stitched together sampling of bits of it, but it's not easy grappling with this history, and I want to say, as a missionary's daughter, if there's any of you that have been harmed by the work of Christianity or missions over the centuries, I'm so sorry. This history that we share is so messy. So, I was 6 years old, a freckle-nosed girl with long red braids that whapped against my elbows, when my parents moved to the north of Haiti to be missionaries, not far from where Columbus sank the Santa Maria. By Christmas, 1981, we had shiny blank passports and visas stamped with palm trees and official signatures from the Haitian government. Our shoulders ached from last-minute immunizations. Battered suitcases from the Salvation Army flopped open on the floor of our trailer like books with broken spines. Half filled with silverware, toys, swimsuits, sheets. The missionaries we were due to replace had instructed us, via a typed letter, to pack multivitamins to compensate for the nutrient-depleted soil, and a cassette player, along with the apologetic disclaimer that we might find it difficult to adjust to life without a television. My parents scoffed at this. They'd never owned one. We were also warned to watch the Haitian customs officials closely when they searched our suitcases, lest any of our valuables disappear. But apart from this one confusing directive, we set off more or less unencumbered by cross-cultural training. My parents knew next to nothing about the history of colonialism, the lingering imbalance of power, resentment against white rule, nor any other significant details from the nearly 200 years of Haitian independence. Nor were church members who applauded our commissioning service any more politically savvy. A few assumed that we were moving to Tahiti. At least one mistook Haiti for Hades. Everyone, of course, had heard of zombies and voodoo, which was enough to get my mother backed against the wall by a livid octogenarian who accused her of being an unfit mother for dragging her precious little girls into such a dark, heathen nation. My mother offered a strained smile and tried to placate. "Thank you for praying. I'm sure God will take care of us." It took me years to understand this fear disguised as pity. Haiti, as the first free black nation to shake off the yoke of slavery, more than a century before the nation whose founding document had declared that all men were created equal, seemed to be prefaced always by this tagline, "the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere." It was a quick, dismissive epithet, a way to denigrate what could not otherwise be understood. Poverty provided a reliable excuse for self-congratulatory concern, a salve to our imagined superiority. My father, a missionary agronomist, is not an easy man to keep up with. My father, the missionary, will gladly walk for hours under a searing tropical sky with only a few sips of water and a handful of dried fruit to deliver tree seeds to farmers to keep the soil from slipping down eroded hillsides. My father, the forest ranger, can traverse miles of unmarked wilderness without a map. My father has never known how to be gentle with those who do not live up to his expectations. He is a man of the earth, his fingernails perpetually stained with berries and dirt. His vision of utopia is agrarian, trees on every hillside, vegetables in every garden, water in every dry stream bed. Seeds are small, but they can change the world. Roots to hold the soil in place, to allow the rain to drip slowly through a thicket of green leaves, to fall soft into loamy soil, replenishing the groundwater. It is through trees that the earth breathes. And the soil of Haiti was rich. A 12-month growing season without cold nights to slow down the pace. Stick a cutting in the ground, and out fluttered roots and buds all on their own. But so little of his missionary vision unfolded as planned. Torrential tropical storms could drop up to 12 inches of rain in a single night, washing away months of work. And then there were the goats, who could happily chomp their way through hundreds of seedlings in a matter of days. And yet, no matter how volatile Haiti became, devastated by drought and military coups, my father rooted himself all the more stubbornly in its eroded soil, so that by the time we finally left, when I was 15, resentment had grown between us like a hedge of rocket cactus, barbed and impenetrable. He longed to make the world a better place, but by taking on the sorrows of others, he buried his own until that thwarted grief exploded into rage. A dinner table upended, a window shattered as a Bible hurled through the air, a daughter slammed against a wall. I inherited my father's anger and his perfectionism. For more than a decade after we left, my family seldom spoke about our years as missionaries. Haiti was a wound, an unhealed scab that I was afraid to pick open. But I knew that unless I faced that broken history, my own buried grief, like my father's, would explode in ways I couldn't predict. Even as a child, I had understood that the missionary compound was a place I would one day have to untangle with words. When I first began to write about Haiti before my sons were born, I did not yet imagine that those first resentful drafts would become a meditation on love in all its complexity, or that what I had to learn from that troubling, joyful, infuriating missionary compound would become an inheritance that I would one day want to pass on to my children. I'm still working to make peace with my parents, but I think I've made my peace with Haiti. Proud, unbroken, resilient, beautiful, devastated Haiti no longer seems to me a nation that is waiting to be saved. For several years after the earthquake, I returned to Haiti every spring. I went there to do some reporting for This American Life, and if you're interested, the episode's called Island Time. As a child, I believed that we missionaries had been sent because we had something to give. But Haiti has survived the unspeakable again and again and stood its ground. Haiti has learned through grief how to endure. And it was in this extraordinary country, which we so naively tried to save, that I first glimpsed what it meant to be fully alive. If you've come to help me, writes Indigenous Australian artist and activist Lilla Lit, then you are wasting your time. But if you've come because your liberation is bound up in mine, then let us work together. My family had moved to Haiti to try to help, but instead we learned our limitations. Failure can be a wise friend. If you suffer from a savior complex, Haiti's a bleak assignment. But if you are able to enter it unguarded, shielded only by curiosity, you will find the sorrows entangled with a defiant joy. In the early 1980s, my father met in the tiny village of Kamkok a Haitian farmer named Joseph Alexandre, who introduces himself simply as Zo. Zo eventually became my father's mentor, ally, and fellow renegade. It was Zo who led my father up a steep, crumbling hillside to see forests of mahogany, lucena, lavapin, Haitian oak, that Zo had planted without the help of missionary tree nurseries. Zo had simply scattered the seeds in the soil before the rains began. I visited Zo with my parents in 2012. When you see the ravines, you will enter into my dream, Zo promised. He'd planted trees even on rented land, and had built stone terraces to catch the soil that washed down from the mountains. He'd paid the masons out of his own pocket. My father shook his head, worried that the trees on the rented land would be cut down by the landowners after the lease had expired, as had been the case with 400 full-grown cinnamon trees that had been harvested later for charcoal. It's not so important to me who owns the land, Zo said. It needed to be reforested. Now I can go and walk under the trees where the birds sing. It's like paradise for me. Now I don't fear the rain. The next morning, at Zo's insistence, although he was too ill to join us, we slipped off our shoes to wade across the Limbe River and climbed out under a canopy of mahogany trees. A crooked path wound through orchards of avocado and citron and plantations of banan. High above the valley floor, on land so steep that my mother and I had to hold hands to clamber over the ridged mounds of manioc and yams, we find wild, untrimmed hedges of lucena that my father had helped plant. The Renvivant towered over the terraces of vetiver and elephant grass. From the ridge, the deep bowl of the valley was edged with green. Everywhere we looked, we could see isolated swaths of forest. A hawk wheeled overhead. Who replanted those hillsides, I asked, pointing to other mountains thick with trees. It was the same answer each time, Zo. When we reached the ravines, the terraces were everything that Zo had promised and more. Falling water burbled over stacked stones. Thickets of green dazzled with wildflowers. Behind the carefully built rock ledges, low depressions had been engineered to catch what washed down from neighboring gardens, trapped topsoil that had been prevented from draining into the rivers and burying the coral reefs offshore. Birds warbled overhead. In wealthier nations, where landowners and wilderness clubs can afford the luxury of benevolence, such measures might be considered less extraordinary. But in Haiti, for one man to rent tracts of deforested land and rebuild them into wildlife habitat was a defiant act of beauty, an investment in a future he might not live to see. Zoe had signed his name in green. Thank you.